there are certain people, I'm not going to say their names, it's not about who said it, but a lot of people say this, certain, figures on social media and government officials. A lot of people think that, sanctions are not brutal. They think that if you sanction a country, that's some sort of humane way to coerce that country as opposed to bombing it. Which again, it's just look at this. They're basically admitting that the objective is to bully a country into obeying, Western and United States foreign policy objectives. So they're basically saying like, yeah, it's good that the United States bullies other countries and coerces them and intimidates them, but let's just starve the people to death instead of bombing them, right? And this idea that sanctions are less brutal is such an ignorant, really like a fucking ignorant thing to say. I spoke to two of my cousins today, right? Do you know what they told me? They told me the situation in Syria right now under sanctions is so fucking bad, they would rather live under the war again. They would rather have bombs raining down on their homes than live under sanctions. Two of my cousins told me that today, right? Roni, you guys know Roni. So he's been out of Syria now for a year or two, and then my other cousin just left 3 months ago. Finally got out. Again, let me say that to you. My cousins from Syria told me they would rather live under the war again than live under sanctions. That is how fucking shit everything is. And I want to tell you something. My cousin, he told me that the electricity now is on for 1 hour, and then it cuts off 6 hours. Then it comes back 1 hour, cuts off 6 hours. Can you imagine living like that? 3-4 hours of electricity a day? He told me when, in spring and autumn, when the electricity is gone for 3 hours and then on for 3 hours, off 3 hours, on 3 hours, that people are happy because it's not as bad as now or in the summer. And you can't get any mazot, you can't get any fuel to put in the sobia, the heater. So you can't even heat yourself during winter now. He told me my grandmother's house, if we wanted to heat ourselves right now, you'd get maybe 50 liters that will last you barely 2 weeks. So can you imagine in winter you only have 2 weeks of heating? And good luck finding fuel. You need money to buy it because it's so expensive. And that's if you find it. So you could still have money for, by some miracle, and you won't even be necessarily find the fuel to buy. And I think it was just this week they cut the subsidies for fuel, the Syrian government. They can't subsidize it anymore, so the price is doubled. You can't get any bread. You have to wait hours in line, and then you give you one bag of bread. I remember I used to go with my cousins or with my mother or with my family, and we go to the bakery and we get bags of bread. Bags, like 5 bags filled like this. There's no such thing as a bread line. I've never heard of a bread line in Syria. That's not a thing. They talk about socialist countries having bread lines. The only bread lines in Syria were created by the United States sanctions. That's a fucking fact. That's a fucking fact. So this idea that sanctions are less brutal is some of the most ignorant, goddamn nonsense I've ever heard in my life. You know who say these kinds of things? The people who say these things have probably never even set outside their own country. They've never even been outside the United States. That's how fucking pig shit ignorant these motherfuckers are. They don't even know where Syria is on a fucking map. They have no clue what's happening in Venezuela. They have literally no idea. They're not the ones who are living under sanctions. They don't have any family living under sanctions. They don't have any friends living under sanctions. They're so fucking pig shit ignorant. Right? They just sit in their armchairs talking about foreign policy, and they can't even place Syria on a fucking map. That's how dumb they are. And people buy this shit. Really, just the most ignorant dunces imaginable, pretending they're authorities on foreign policy. You don't even understand your own fucking country, you dunce. let alone Syria and Venezuela and everything else. They're so brainwashed. They've grown up their entire lives in this American bubble or this Western European bubble, brainwashed, and all they've been fed, everything they know about other countries comes from curated corporate Western media. They've never been to these places. They don't speak the language. They have no clue about the culture. They don't know anyone there, and they think that they understand sanctions and it's less brutal. Really? How about I cut your water off and your heating and take away your food for a couple of months and see how much you fucking like it, you prick? Yeah? If you think sanctions are not so bad, let's do it. You don't think that kills people? If I take away your food and your water, you're not going to die? If I take away your medicine, if you need medicine, you have a life-threatening condition, and I take away the medical equipment, that's not going to kill you? You fucking smartass? These people are so disgusting. They're so arrogant, and they think that they understand everything, and like they're rational, and they are, you know, they're responsible because they're not savage. They don't want to bomb people. They just want to starve people to death, right? Again, man, I'm telling you, my cousin said they would rather have the mortars, the mortars, you know, like the shells raining down on them, qazaif. They would rather have the mortars raining down on them and the war back in Damascus than live under sanctions. And that's not just me. Go ask any Syrian who's living now in Damascus or in the areas that have been taken back that are under control, what it's like. And interestingly enough, guess who's not under sanctions in Syria? The SDF, who are stealing the oil with the Americans, and the terrorists, Al-Qaeda. There's no sanctions in Idlib, where you have all these tens of thousands of jihadist fighters. I don't care if it's even non-lethal. Like, let's say you were taking away something that is not life-threatening. Like, let's say it's not food necessarily, or it's not medical parts. But like the whole premise, the whole idea that you think it's okay as a country to bully other countries into coercion, that's not diplomacy. That just makes you a prick. And you're no better than someone who drops bombs. You're no better. Let me play you again this clip here from the former U.S. Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. You might recall in the 1990s that Iraq, they starved Iraq. Okay? And do you know how many people died?
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Oh, you think the price is worth it? They killed 500,000 children in Iraq with sanctions. 500,000 children. And they say the price is worth it. Yeah, because you're not the one paying it. You're not the one paying the price. You impose this price on other people. You extinguish their lives, and then you say, I think the price is worth it. What do you mean worth it? What is it your business to go and do that? How is that you murder hundreds of thousands of people and you think that's worth it? Worth what? What is that worth? How are you any better than Saddam Hussein? How the fuck are you any better than these so-called dictators that you're going in and trying to topple? You are worse than them. You are worse than them by leagues. And so this is the situation, right? And they're not going to tell you this on the news, right? Because they want you to believe that sanctions are humane. They're not humane. They're evil. And they're illegal under international law. Unilateral sanctions imposed by the United States are illegal. They have no legal right to do that. But even when this was done to Iraq, and it was supposedly legal under the UN, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right. It's just as lethal. If it wasn't lethal, why would they use it? They know it makes the people suffer. It's never the leadership. When you sanction Syria, Bashar al-Assad or his family or the ministers, they're not suffering. They still have all their resources, and their standard of living does not change. You know whose standard of living changes? Everyone who's not Bashar al-Assad. Everyone who is not in the government. They're the ones who are getting screwed. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? They want them to rise up and topple the government. But that's not going to happen. They know it's not going to happen, because if it didn't happen in 10 years, it's not going to happen, right? How many decades have they've been trying to sanction Cuba? 60 years. Did it accomplish anything? No, nothing. They're sanctioning Venezuela. Iran doesn't accomplish nothing. That's not how it works. They know that it screws the people and it makes them suffer. And that's why they do it. And it's not less brutal than bombs. I will not tolerate these pick shit, ignorant motherfuckers sitting in their armchairs talking about sanctions that they don't have to suffer. These prices that they don't have to pay. Your opinion is fucking worthless, you ignorant prick. I'm really angry about this because they have no clue what they're talking about. They think it's a game. You know, they think, oh yeah, a sanction is when we stop, Maduro from being able to access his bank account. No, that's not what it means. That's not what it means. You're stopping people in Venezuela from eating. I spoke to the UN Special Rapporteur on sanctions, right? And she told me what she witnessed in Venezuela. Man, the children, they don't even have pencils to write with in school because of the sanctions. Pencils, right? And then they give you this nonsense about, oh no, but U.S. sanctions have exemptions for humanitarian purposes. No, they don't. That's just on paper. It doesn't exist in reality. That doesn't do anything because the NGOs cannot keep up with what the traders supply. An NGO cannot substitute for the entire imports of the country, especially in countries like, Lebanon or Yemen, where 90% of the food is imported. The exemptions are, they exist on paper, but they're too difficult to actually navigate. Most people steer clear of it. It's not a solution. It's just some crap they put on there to make themselves feel good. So, this thing like, sanctions are less brutal. That's the feel-good version of imperialism, right? It's these people who think that they are somehow not savages and, they're more benevolent in their manner, and that sanctioning people is okay because, it's not a bomb that's falling on them. And that way we can sleep at night as we continue imperialism by bullying other countries, starving them off. Sanctions are siege warfare, period.